Hey y'all, it's your girl Deborah from Let's Get Real about mental health. So today I want to talk to you about some of the stereotypes or some of the stuff that I've heard when people find out that I have mental health issues. The first one we're going to talk about is my depression. So when I have depression, I have literally heard when I came out to other people or let other people know about what was going on with me, you don't look like you have depression. Wondering what exactly I'm supposed to look like. You can't have depression. I just saw you smile the other day. Okay, y'all, depression doesn't mean I never smile again. Doesn't mean I'm never going to be happy again. It's just something that I deal with. It makes me have periods of really profound sadness. You can choose to be happy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Let me read that one. Why don't you choose to be happy? Yeah. If I had a choice, I definitely would not have my mental health disorders. However, it's not that simple. If it was that simple, there would never be another depressed person in the world. And, if you're asking me that, I think you should also ask people like, why are you homophobic? Why can't you choose not to be homophobic? Why can't you choose, it is a mindset, yes, but it's definitely not something that we completely control. So that was really kind of a bad example. My apologies on that one. This is one of my personal favorites. What do you have to be depressed about? Where would you like me to start? And what do you have the time? Are you really interested in what I have to say? Or are you just being kind of passive aggressive about, blowing me off for what is going on with me? Because I could tell you for days. I could explain to you everything I've learned in therapy and why I chemically react this way. And then I'll tell you the things that happened in my life that kind of it added to the chemical imbalance I have in my brain. So those are some of my favorites. And to be perfectly honest, most of those came from family members. When I first told them what was going on with me. When I first started having depression symptoms, I was like 15 years old. And I mean, no disrespect by what I'm about ready to say, but it's something that I heard. My dad and stepmom, I'm sorry, were just like, it's teenage angst. She'll get over it. Which is it's a very real thing. When you're a teenager, you're really freaking angsty, and you're angry and you're sad. And that is perfectly normal. You're right. That is perfectly normal. However, by 17, I was still having the same symptoms. And I think at that point, they probably should have been looking at maybe getting me someone to talk to or taking me to a doctor. My grandmother just told me to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Deb, and get happy. I was like, wow, okay. But that is old school. She was well into her 70s when she was telling me this stuff. So it was very old school, something that she, that's the way she would have handled it back in her generation. Unfortunately, my other parental figure did nothing about it. They just really ignored it and whatever, it wasn't, but that parental figure was not very engaged with me at all. Only did the minimum, that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much par for the course with her. But those are the things that I've heard when I was first starting to have those problems and everything like that. All right. So the anxiety, these ones piss me off. Why don't you just calm down? Do you think that if I could calm down and wouldn't be anxious, that I wouldn't do it? I most certainly would do it. Why can't you just sit still? Because I'm anxious as all hell. Okay? I'm nervous and I'm anxious and I can't sit still. Stop pacing back and forth. If I'm up to the point of pacing, I'm on the verge of having a panic attack. So we probably shouldn't lead with that. Oh, this is my favorite. Stop doing this with your rings. I do that a lot. I'll twist my rings. Nowadays, my husband will stop me, grab my hands and say, okay, what's going on? You're twisting your rings. What's going on? Why are you so anxious? And then he'll help me remove myself from the situation. But not everybody's, it's been 20 years. He's learned a lot over the last 20 years. You're just overreacting to the situation. How can you tell me that I am overreacting when you don't even know what's stressing me? You don't even know what's making me anxious. You have no idea. Don't say you're overreacting when you don't understand what the situation is. I think that is one of the ones that irritates me the most. If you cannot tell by the way I just reacted. Okay, so let's talk about, when you get into an argument with someone and they know you have a mental health disorder. These ones are some of the most disrespectful things I've ever heard. I mean, I take such great offense at them. I just want to stab somebody when they say that, which probably isn't a healthy thing, but that's what I want to do. Number one, did you take your meds? Are you off your meds? Is that why you're so angry and overreacting so much? Oh boy. Okay. So, my reaction to that is, yes, I took my meds. You're just being an asshole. Okay. Yes, that is the worst thing you could say to somebody who's angry. Okay. That's like, you call in, your man has an issue. He doesn't like being called an asshole, but you call him an asshole just because you're angry. Your girl don't want to be called crazy and you call her crazy just because you're angry. It just doesn't work. It's a bad idea. You need to get some professional help. Excuse me. I take medication and I'm in therapy once a week. What the hell else would you like me to do? Here's a thought. Why don't you go to some therapy too and learn how to deal with my issue so we can be happy together? Oh, I know. Rock the boat, right? Crazy, crazy thought that somebody who's in my life should actually get therapy and help them learn how to deal with me instead of me just doing all the work. And believe me, y'all, I do a lot of fucking work. Okay. I have therapy once a week, medication every single day. I report with my psychologist once a month, my psychiatrist once a month, just to make sure I'm doing okay. Because I got a lot of shit going on, Oh, and again, when you're mad, you're just overreacting because you have a mental health problem. And again, I'm going to have to fall back on my favorite line. No, I'm not overreacting because I have a mental health problem. You're just being an asshole. Okay. You're just being an asshole. Just because I choose to stand up on the issue that you were saying, right, we're arguing about, and I stand up for myself, doesn't mean I'm off my meds, doesn't mean I'm crazy, doesn't mean I'm overreacting. Well, sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. And people need to step back and instead of blaming everybody else, take a freaking look at yourself and see how you're reacting and how you're dealing with the situation so that we can settle it without harming each other. Okay. And then, oh gosh, this one actually hurt me so much. I talked to my father and he doesn't understand my mental health issues, but he did ask me this. He'll ask me, how you doing? How's everything going with your issues? He doesn't know what to call them. So I told him one day, I said, Dad, I got diagnosed with PTSD. And he kind of looked at me really, like sad. And he's like, well, Deb, I think you're confused. And I said, no, I'm not confused. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. He goes, you can't. You never went to war. You're not a soldier. At that point, I had to decide whether or not I was just going to lay out the truth to him or I was going to go, okay, Dad, it's not worth arguing. Well, I chose to lay out the truth. So what I said is, Dad, you're right. I didn't go to war, but I have PTSD from being a paramedic. And he's like, well, how does that? You're just helping people. Let's see, Dad. My partner and I got blocked off at the strip. We had to dive into the back of the ambulance because they were throwing rocks and rocking our ambulance and the palm trees were on fire. And we're hoping to God somebody can find us and get us the frick out of there. Okay. Let's see, Dad. I was driving down the street one day and these two cars came flying around the corner and they were having a shootout between the two of them. We had to bail out of our ambulance because we were caught between the two of them and run for our lives. How's that one? I know, Dad. I came into a house where a baby had been shaken to death and it was everything I did. And I gave every part of my soul to try to save that baby and bring him back to life. And I couldn't. And then I testified in the guy's murder trial. How's that? And he kind of just looked at me as like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm like, that's just it. You don't realize. You pass judgment before you realize. I won't even start with my personal life, but my professional life there's been some really rough calls. I've had some really great ones too. And I wouldn't change it. Being a paramedic was best thing I've ever done next to my kids. I loved being a paramedic. It was so incredible. And I have such a great EMS family that support me in that way. But yeah, And then I have a relative who served, and we won't say one way or another about what I think about that, but they said I was a disgrace because I was claiming to have a disorder that only soldiers could have. And in that particular incident, with this particular family member, I don't even get into it with them because there's just the stupidity is just runs abound with this one. Just, oh Lord. So I just looked at him and I go, yeah, whatever. I said, well, I'm not going to argue with you because there's no way I'm going to change your mind, but I'm guaranteeing that I've seen more crap, more mentally altering crap than you have. And I remember thinking, I ran on a girl who had been hit by a car, and she was bleeding everywhere, and she she didn't have a helmet on when she was riding her bike. She had massive head trauma, and we had to intubate her. We had to do all this stuff, and it just blood everywhere. And I just remember when I got to the trauma center, where they did their thing, which, made it stabilize her as much as you could. I came back the next day to see what was going on, and the family told me the doctor said there's no hope. She won't recover from this. It's too much. She just will not recover. And I remember looking down at my uniform, my jumpsuit at the time, and I remember seeing it and saying, shit. I remember seeing blood on my uniform, and I had missed that spot of blood from that little girl the day before. I hadn't cleaned my uniform quite as well as I thought I had, which I know in itself is yucky, but it was so traumatic for me. It was so traumatic that I just cannot understand how people can say you can't have PTSD because you didn't serve. No, I did serve. I served the greater community of Las Vegas, and I was so proud to do so. So proud to do so. And I would do it 100 times over. If I was given a chance to redo that, I would do it again and again and again and again. Even with the shit that I have nightmares about today, it's still worth it to me. So the next one I'm going to talk about is it amazes me, absolutely amazes me that some medical professionals are some of the most crass people I've ever met, which, we're all, that's not, but this particular one that I ran into had no tact whatsoever, none. I happened to be in the emergency room with my youngest son. He had a tendency to trip and fall a lot when he was a child. Probably had to do with his big feet. But no, we're sitting there and he had fallen and broken a rib, and we're getting an x-ray and all that stuff. And I just remember they were doing shift change. And I happened to be, listening because, there's not a whole lot to do in the ER when you're sitting there. And this one particular person just ticked off the room. Crazy, 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 crazy. And I thought, well, shit. That's pretty much bullshit, okay? If you're there because you had a psychotic break, doesn't mean that you're crazy. You might be feeling crazy at the time, but doesn't mean you're completely crazy. If you're there with a suicide attempt, that doesn't mean you're crazy. It just meant that particular point in time, you had reached the level of pain that you could endure, okay? If you went out and murdered somebody because the voices told you to, you might need to wear that crazy crown. However, I just find it very disheartening that a healthcare worker would lump everybody together like that. And yeah, I know, I understand. She's probably in a hurry. She's trying to get off her shift, whatever. But there's many different ways you can say it, and you certainly should not say it so the patient or another patient can hear that, because that kind of stuff can be damaging to anyone, let alone somebody who has a mental health issue who is trying to get over the worst hump of their life at that point, and it's just things that I absolutely cannot, drives me nuts. So my question for today is, my question is what kind of stereotypes have you guys, had to deal with your mental health issues? What kind of things are you dealing with or have you dealt with in the past? And I got to tell you, I have one that it still haunts me today, and I'll share this one. Someone said to me, If you didn't have a mental health disorder or problem, you wouldn't be grieving as long as you are. Huh. Okay. There's a saying that grief is the price we pay for love. And I'll tell you what, I will gladly pay the price for having the love that I had with this person for 22 years. Thinking that I should be over it is asinine. The hardest part of grief is actually the point where you know they're gone, but you can't. I mean, for me, the hardest part, the longest part is, and you can't let go because you're afraid if you let go, it's all done. You're afraid you're going to stop. Sorry. You're afraid you're not going to remember them anymore. And it is really, really hard. Because when you're grieving, part of you just, and no matter where you're at in your stages of grieving, part of you just really keeps saying to yourself, if I could just have 5 more minutes. If I could just say I love you. If I could just say goodbye. And it is so much so that to this day, and I believe it's been, 4 years, I still hear her laughter in the wind. I do. I swear to God, I do. And sometimes when I'm having a really bad day, I just hear that voice in my head. And just, get up, bitch. You ain't acting like this. This isn't you. Don't do this. You ain't. No. What are you doing? I'm gone. You need to get on with your life. There's also a saying. People tell you, you need to get back to your life. Okay, well, I got news for you. When somebody passes away, I had a wonderful life with them in it, but my life will never be the same without them in it. I may live it, but it will never be the same. And that is, wow. Oh, sorry, y'all. That is, I was so floored when somebody said that to me. I'm like, are you kidding me? How dare you tell me how to grieve? How dare you tell me what the acceptable time is for grieving? Each person grieves in their own way, in their own time, and with their own reminders. I think it's important that we remember that. It's super important. It may take forever, but you know what? That's their grieving process, and you have no one has any right to tell you what you're grieving. Unless you're harming yourself or others, there's no reason for anybody to tell you that your grieving process is wrong. So I just wanted to, that's a heavy note to end that on. Sorry about that, you guys. But next week we will be talking about grief. So I guess that's a little segue to it. But please leave me, again, more comments, more ideas, whatever you guys would like to do. I would love to hear from you. And I hope you have a good day, and always be kind to yourself. I'm coming, Riz.